This is Randy Sullivan, the host of Bourbon Real Talk. I grew up in a small town and went to a small church where everyone looked and thought like me. Over the years, I've gotten to know and love people from all different walks of life. This has made my world bigger and richer. The secret ingredient in forming those relationships was getting to know people's real stories. That helped me to identify with them, have compassion on them, and eventually develop a real connection with them. We live in a disconnected world today, and I want to do everything in my power to build connections between individuals who may not have attempted friendship otherwise. I've observed this happening in the bourbon community on its own because whiskey naturally brings people together. Bourbon Real Talk hopes to combine the world's new passion for bourbon into an opportunity to bring people together. We will share some whiskey knowledge, some good drams, and some real talk. So sit back, pour a drink, and open your hearts and minds. You might just find yourself feeling more connected to the people in the world around you, all fueled by bourbon. Hello, everybody out there. This is Randy Sullivan with Bourbon Real Talk. We have a very exciting show for you today. We have with us Melissa Starr from Someone Say Whiskey and other clubs as well.
That's right.
Yeah, so we're very excited. Melissa has some very unique life experiences that I thought would be helpful for everybody out there in podcast world to experience, and maybe, just maybe, it'll help you understand one of your relatives, maybe yourself, or maybe a coworker or someone else, and we're going to see if we can't form some extra connection today. So Melissa is into bourbon.
I am, very much so. Expensively so.
It can get out of hand quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. I have several spouses that hate me because I got their spouse into bourbon, and they're like, "Oh my God, you have 40 bottles of bourbon," and I'm like, "Yeah, he's just getting started. It's fine. It's gonna be good." Yeah. So I have observed multiple times recently where you were buying bourbon and then in the purchase decision message stating that you wish that you had not done it.
Daily.
Yeah.
Daily.
It's a mild addiction, but a good one because bourbon does tend to bring people together. So today, and as a show guest, you get to pick from my collection what you want to try. So today, Melissa has selected to try the 2018 Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. And I've hit this bottle pretty hard lately. Gave some samples out. I gave some to Rodney the other day. So we're gonna do a live review of this bad boy. And so, where do you think your bottle counts at right now?
Oh, a solid 30 probably, including what I did this past week.
Okay,
I'm just getting started.
that's not bad. No one should be upset about that. That is not bad at all.
I'm out of room in my locker. That I can tell you.
Yeah, I mean that's when you get a bigger locker. I took over the game room closet, and so it's full of whiskey, and then that was full. Actually, you know what happened? It wasn't full, but my wife complained that now we don't have a game room closet, and so I had to give up some of the shelf space for like blankets and shit we don't use. And so then I was like, all right, well, I need other space. So I took over some of the cabinets that are over here in the dry bar. And then I built the shelves
that
for the.
Seems fair to me.
And full disclosure, I'm telling on myself here. What I discovered was that if I have display shelf bourbons and someone comes over to the house, they're way less likely to drink my ultra premium stuff than they are if it's in the closet with the rest of the whiskey.
That's fair.
Yeah, and so
I looked over there and thought, yeah, I'm not picking anything off that shelf.
But we did, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah, and that's kind of I mean, it's not that it's not there to drink, but you know, it's some of it is hard to get. Yeah, some of it is hard to get. All right. So are you a person that likes to like break down bourbons and detect the smells and all that?
Or? I am working on my palate. My wine palate is strong. My whiskey palate is getting there.
Okay. Yeah, and I started with wine as well. So there's actually a lot of crossover. Some of the flavors are different, but on the nose on this one, I get, and I've done a live review of this one before, so if you've heard this before, I apologize, but I get a cherry Jolly Rancher.
It's definitely fruit, for sure.
I also get bananas.
I was going to say banana.
But I get banana on all Old Forester products.
Okay, interesting.
Actually, all Brown-Forman products. So that's Old Forester, Woodford, and Jack Daniels. I get banana on all of it. In fact, we went to the Florida Keys for my friend's big gay wedding. I have a side note. I went to my friend's, and we're going to talk more about this later, but this gay couple, we've known one of them since high school, love them. They finally were able to get married, and they have a dachshund dog that was in the wedding that had
a wiener dog.
A wiener dog.
Okay. I had to say that.
Yeah, it's a wiener dog. A lot of my gay friends have wiener dogs, and I don't think that's an accident. And so the dog had a custom suit on that matched their suits. And I was sitting there, and I remember thinking, we're sitting on the beach, and I was like, you know what? If you're having a gay wedding and your dog's not wearing a custom-made suit, don't even invite me, bro.
They've set the bar.
This is next level.
Yes.
So anyways, I actually don't remember my story.
Because we pre-gamed before this one.
We did pre-game a little bit. So back to the whiskey. Because when I was there, my wife ordered a banana daiquiri, and they had a fresh banana that they threw in with ice, threw in some rum, and I took a sip of it, and I was like, this is what I taste in whiskey, right?
Now I won't be able to untaste that if I have that again.
Right, yeah. I mean, it was like, and it actually tasted a lot like the distillate that I've had at several distilleries, fresh off the still. There's a lot of banana flavor in there, and it's so muted the way that the ice muted the flavor of a fresh banana, because they didn't put any extra sweetness in there. There was just a banana-y flavor, and this has a lot of that. So let's taste it. I need to turn my head when I swish, because that's going to be super loud.
That's great. And this is something I've wanted to taste for quite a long time, and I just haven't pulled the trigger on getting the bottle.
Yeah, they got kind of expensive. I've been very lucky. I started building my credibility with specs like in about 2014. And so most years I'm offered a Old Forester Birthday Bourbon through specs, through their program, because I have enough specs points. But yeah, this is phenomenal. I'm getting obviously vanilla and caramel, and I've stopped saying that. So don't think that when I'm tasting a bourbon and I don't say vanilla and caramel, that it's not there. It's just they all have that, especially Kentucky. But that cherry hard candy smell that I get actually translates a little bit into like a cherry cough drop.
Huh. Not medicine-y though at all.
I get a tiny medicine-y flavor off of it, and everyone's palate's different.
I taste a lot of vanilla.
Yeah. And I'm getting a little bit of like sweet smoke, like oak smoke, like
at the back
end. Yep. And a little bit of dark chocolate.
Now that you said that, now I'm going to taste that.
But on the finish, not like in the attacker mid palate. So anyway, pretty good whiskey.
Excellent.
I am a fan. So we'll drink that throughout. So the reason why I had Melissa on today is because Melissa is in fact a lesbian.
I am, although I hate that word. I probably should have told you that. See, we didn't pregame that.
We didn't pregame that.
It's okay.
Okay, so
I've always just used the word gay.
Okay,
lesbian
gay
sounds like a dinosaur to me.
Do you know?
Like a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Okay. There's a joke about that.
It's like a lot of push.
Like a lot of push, yeah. And so
it's an old joke. But
the reason why I say lesbian is and this is something like for those of us who are trying to be progressive, right? And there's a lot of different labels now.
Yes.
I try to use the appropriate label so that people are not confused. So normally if I'm talking about a male couple,
sure,
I say gay.
Yes.
Female couple, I'll say lesbian.
Sure.
But I also am under the impression that you should only be told once, right? And so, like, I'm sure you saw the meme. It's ma'am.
Yes,
right?
Which is hilarious to me.
Which is hilarious, but and I was like, don't get mad the first time they do it, right? Like, explain what you want, and then after that you can get mad.
Right.
That's disrespectful, right? So I will refrain from using that.
First of all, it doesn't upset me. It's not offensive. It's just, to me, it's a very I don't know. It's not that it's old school. It's just that it almost sounds like an affliction.
Got you.
I don't know. I've never cared for it, but most of my friends use that term. I just never have. I've always just used gay.
Right.
If I'm even using a descriptor. Yeah, right. Absolutely. So I've lived my whole life like this, so I've never really had to use a descriptive. It just, everyone knows me.
Right.
So it's never been something I've had to put a label on, I suppose.
Right. No, that's fair. And so I grew up homophobic.
Sure.
And, part of my motivation for even wanting to do this podcast is the transition that I've experienced in my life personally and how it's made my life richer. Mm-hmm. That I have a diverse group of friends. I have gay friends, I have lesbian friends, I have friends of different religions, friends of different races.
Right.
And I love everybody until you give me a reason not to, and then I fucking hate you. But
absolutely.
I do hold a bit of a grudge. But I think that most people's lives are set up in such a way that they can't get exposed to that. Mm-hmm. Because we spend time around the same people, we run in the same circles, we work with the same people at work. And then if you have a preconceived notion, there might be opportunities for connection there that you're passing up because of, prejudices, if you will. So let's go all the way back. At what, because you're, what'd you say, 44?
I just turned 44.
Right.
Last month.
And so I thought this would be an interesting conversation because you've experienced what it's like to be viewed by society as a gay woman when society wasn't as progressive as it is now.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And so there might be someone listening to this podcast that is young and doesn't know what you had to go through to pave the way for them to have the level of acceptance that they do now. Not that, homophobia is gone. Just,
right.
It's
right.
it's no different than someone saying, oh, well, we had a black president, so racism is dead. That's not true. There's still racism.
Absolutely.
There's still homophobia. Mm-hmm. But it definitely used to be different.
Right.
So
not too long ago.
And I helped perpetuate that. So, and I'm trying to make amends now. So, about what age were you when you started to realize that you thought differently about sexuality?
Well, let me say it this way. I've never had a boyfriend. I've never kissed a guy. Never slept with a guy. So my entire life I've known on some level mm-hmm. that I was solely attracted to women or only interested in women in that way. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that I was probably 13 when I really realized that that I was gay, and that in large part due to a mentor, not in an illicit way or any way
right
weird, but just seeing her live her life in the way she lived her life was attractive to me. The way she carried herself. My dad, some people won't know who I'm talking about, but when Phil Donahue mm-hmm. was still on TV,
yeah, I watched Phil Donahue.
I succinctly remember being in my living room. I was 16 years old, and my stepfather walked in the room, and it was Robin and Diane, I think their names were, and they owned a bar called Girl Bar in LA, mm-hmm. which I would later frequent when I was in college.
Yeah,
but they're super attractive women who would quote unquote pass in society as being straight women,
right?
And that was when the term lipstick lesbian was coined.
I'm familiar.
So when my stepfather walked in the room, he of course was checking out the women on TV, and then when he realized what this topic was, which I was engrossed in, obviously. He said, lipstick lesbians. He's like, I'm down with that. And so that was like when I started to think maybe this is not going to be as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Because when I was 13 and I was an athlete and I was a tomboy and I was all those things, I started to get petrified about how am I going to have this discussion?
Right.
Because I knew I was going to have the discussion. I was never going to be someone that was just going to kind of do what society wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I was going to do what I wanted to do. It was just a matter of how was I going to come out.
Right.
So it was kind of a segue. When I remember my stepfather said that, I was 16 years old. I was a junior. And I was already dating a girl in high school. And everyone thought we were just best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was very passable. And, you know, my senior year when we broke up, because I was leaving for college and she was a junior, and everyone was like, what the hell just happened with these two? You know, they were best friends. They're not talking anymore. I just thought I'd leave for college and that's when I was going to come out.
Right.
Because I wasn't going to do it while I was still living at home. Because I didn't want to deal with that. But she decided, instead of just saying, hey, we just had a fallout like girls do in high school, she decided to say, well, Melissa hit on me and, you know,
so she outed.
She completely outed me 2 weeks before graduation. And I thought my world was going to fall apart, and it did not. You know, I was in with, you know, student body. I was in with the athletes, obviously, because I was an athlete through high school and college. I was in with the academics. So I had friends in all cliques, and it was the opposite of it falling apart. Like everyone rallied against, you know, for me. And it was at that point I had to tell my mom.
Okay.
Because I was destroyed, you know, like anyone who breaks up with their love of their life in high school. Right. So, so I had to tell my mom, and I was, you know, 2 weeks away from graduation and 2 weeks away from moving to college, and it couldn't have gone better.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, she struggled for about a week, you know, making eye contact. I'm her youngest. I'm her baby. Mm-hmm. And we were very close. So she struggled for about a week, but then she was fine. And, you know, she was until she passed away, she was my biggest supporter.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then from that point on, there was no closet for me. Not in college, not professionally, not socially. I never thought about going backwards.
Right.
So I've been very lucky. I've had a couple of bad experiences in college with just meathead guys, but you know, other than that, I've been very lucky. Very different than a lot of people's experiences.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked with enough people to know that, you know, that process was much more difficult for a lot of the people that I've spoken with. It went terribly, and it had a huge impact on them.
Yeah.
And so, how about your stepdad?
My stepdad, you know, my mom and my stepdad aren't married anymore. My mom's now deceased. She actually passed away 20 days after my wedding, unexpectedly. But my mom and my stepdad is very old school. Construction worker. He has a Southern flag, rebel flag on the back of his truck. You know, he's that guy.
Right.
So that's who I was the most worried about. I was less worried about my mom and my sisters, and my nephews and nieces. I was really worried about him. He's fine. You know, he comments on Facebook now with, you know, liking pictures of me and my girlfriend. And when I was married before, you know, he was very complimentary of that situation. So, you know, it goes back to, I feel almost like it was a duty on my part to live what I call an authentic life. Mm-hmm. Because I think if you just know people for who they are, the other things that go along with them become more acceptable. So if you and I know each other because of whiskey, right, or we know each other because we did this tasting at this house just a few weeks ago, and we, you know, passed bottles around, and I was drinking out of the same glass with, you know, 20 other guys.
Right.
Then finding out I'm gay is not that big of a deal. But if I lead with that, then that's what all I become. And
that's why I'm doing this.
Right.
Right.
So that's why it's important to me that I've always just kind of been me, and that, oh, by the way, right, I happen to sleep with women.
Right.
Which guys dig, so there's that.
Right.
And women just feel safe around me, so there's that too. Right,
yeah. So we're going to get into so much of this. So I had this really I've had several like life altering experiences, right, that have caused me to become more progressive, although I'm not a huge fan of that word. I really don't like titles altogether.
Right.
But people try to put you in a box so they can understand you, so I get that. But I remember my my stepdad, who looks like a slightly smaller version of Hulk Hogan. Okay. Like even still to today. But when I first met my wife, I was like, this dude looks like Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And I remember my dad warning me, like, bro, don't sleep with this girl. Her dad will actually kill you. And I didn't. We didn't have sex until marriage. But anyways, he just your quintessential like man's man.
Mm-hmm.
Huge wood shop, builds houses, works
Mm-hmm.
with his hands. Like if I can't fit my hand around his hand, and he's only like 6'1" or so,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not like he's just giant. I say only, I mean he's bigger than me, but I'm just saying like he's just a man's man. And his next door neighbor, out when they lived in the country, and everybody had I think at least 2 acres or 4 acres, was a I don't want to say lesbian, a female gay couple.
You can.
And they all hung out together.
Right.
But I mean, I knew him to be the type of person that, frowned upon that whole lifestyle, right?
Except for his friends, who
Right.
happen to be gay.
But
Right.
but that's the point, right? It's like on a one-on-one individual basis, it's that doesn't define the person.
No.
The experiences that you have with them and their experiences and how they've been affected and the compassion that you can have on that, that's what defines the person.
Right.
And so that's kind of why I want to do this, because I want to expose people, right? So to go back. This is Randy Sullivan with the Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team and the host of Bourbon Real Talk. Producing a podcast is time-consuming and expensive, and Bourbon Real Talk wants to maintain its integrity by not promoting products and services that it doesn't believe in. For this reason, I've opted to have my real estate team sponsor this program. The Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team has operated since 2008. We've sold almost 500 homes. We have proprietary programs that make a massive difference to the outcome of our clients, and we service the entire North Texas area. If you live in North Texas and you need to buy or sell a home, please give us a chance to explain how our services could benefit you. We understand that not all of our listeners live in North Texas. We also know that not all real estate agents are created equal. If you need a real estate agent outside of North Texas, the Randall Sullivan Home Selling Team has access to tools to help you find a highly qualified agent in your area. The service is free for you, and we stick around through the end of the process to help you with your transaction, even when we're not your agent. If you have a real estate transaction in your future, please reach out to us at randallsullivanteam.com, Facebook, Instagram, or just give us a call at 214-385-9101. Family's relatively supportive.
Family's completely supportive.
Did the other girl that you were dating in high school, did she get outed over her outing you?
Yes, she did. And what was funny is that today, by the way, we're still friends. We're friends on Facebook. She is married to the guy that she dated in high school before me.
Okay.
They have 2 sons. They've been married. He's in the military. They've been married over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier for her. I mean, those things happen. I mean, I think you go through those things. Mm-hmm. I can't speak for men. I just know that a lot of women experiment in high school and college.
Right.
A lot of them experiment with me. And college was fun for that reason. But I mean, I am friends with a lot of women today that I went to college with that were what I would have considered to be gay in college, and now they're married with children.
Right.
And it's not as if they don't talk about that time in their life. But I just think there is a level of experimentation and a level of a spectrum of sexuality that
Mm-hmm.
exists that you either stick with or move away from,
right,
for one reason or another. But yes, so people knew that afterwards that her and I had been together, but that's, for her, that's completely in her past.
Right. Well, and so I was going to talk about this later, but the subject came up. So let's talk about spectrum of sexuality.
Sure.
So and I'll tell my story. So I have we're friends with a gay couple that we met, one of them in high school, and I was talking with he and his partner. They've been together for 11 years, and I asked him about having been with women in high school, and he said that he could never finish. And his partner had never heard that information after being together for 11 years. And his partner, in like the most gay affectation possible, was like, honey, you were just sleeping with the wrong girls. I finished every time, right? And that was a real eye-opener for me, because I like to play tricks on my mind to try and figure things out and understand. And there was we used to go to a church, and the pastor's stepdaughter was gay. And every time she would come to service after she went away to college and came out, because she didn't come out until she left school, mm-hmm. Everybody suspected she was gay, but once she left, she was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. He would preach about how homosexuality was an abomination and blah, blah, blah. And so that got me to thinking, right? Because I had tended to agree with that when I was going to this church. I mean, sure. I was a junior high youth pastor, never ordained, but I had the title. Mm-hmm. And it caused me to think, like, okay, so let's suppose that I woke up in an alternate universe where everybody said, like, I don't want you to have a job with me. I don't want you, therefore no insurance. I don't want you to live in my house. Mm-hmm. So no rentals. I don't want you to talk to my kids unless you're willing to make sweet gay love to a man. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I asked myself, if I lived in that world, and all I wanted to do was be with a woman, but in this reality, being with a woman was terrible and taboo, and it was against everyone's religion that lived there. Right. Could I force myself to be in a same-sex, gay relationship to appease society so that I would be successful, right? And the answer is no, because I'm not gay at all. I've searched the deepest recesses of my mind. There's no level of curiosity. Right. There's not, like, I'm not even sure I like seeing myself naked. Right. So the thought of seeing another man naked does nothing for me. Okay. So, but then I realized, the pastor's daughter, she wakes up in that world every day.
Absolutely. A lot of people still do.
Right. Every day. And everyone says, no, if you want to be accepted by your family, you want to be accepted by your church, you want to be accepted, you're going to have to do this thing. And the same level of, like, I just threw up a little bit in the back of my throat when mm-hmm. I think about doing those things. She feels that way.
Every day.
Right. But then there's the scenario where, the gay guy's like, honey, you were just sleeping with the wrong girls. And I go, okay, well, then that means there has to be some sort of a sexual spectrum, right? That's actually apparently pretty controversial.
So there's a lot of divisiveness, I would say. And I want to say it's gotten better since maybe I came out. There's always, you're gay or you're straight, and then you're bisexual. And if you were bisexual, the gay people didn't understand it, the straight people didn't understand it. And there was a lot of infighting. There's a lot of infighting in the gay community between gay women and gay men. There's a lot of...
Straight people don't know this, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Well, listen, it's no different. I got in a discussion with a friend of mine who's black, but she's not black enough.
Right.
So there's light-skinned black women and there's dark-skinned black women, and there's infighting between those two groups. Or if you make your hair natural versus let it be...
curly.
Absolutely.
Right.
So there's a level of, are you gay enough?
Right.
How gay are you? Are you really gay? Are you fake gay? Are you sometimes gay?
Right.
And I don't know why it matters, but it's just something for folks to fight about, I suppose. But no, there is. I mean, I will tell you that I have never been with a woman, and I've been in 4 long-term, 7 years, 4 years, 5 years, relationships that hasn't been with a man before being with a woman.
Really?
No, I've never been with a man, but everyone I've been with has been with a man before they were with a woman.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying the opposite. I was
No, no.
man, every gay woman that I've gotten close enough with for them to tell my story had all tried being with me.
Right. And in fact, there's been 2 women I've been with who have never been with a woman until they were with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the one I'm with now is, the same age as I am, had been married for a long time, has been divorced, has 2 grown children, and had never been with a woman until me. And if you were to ask her, if she were here today, you would ask her, "Are you gay?" And she would tell you no. She would tell you no, and she would tell you if her and I were no longer, she would be with a man again.
Right.
She would never be with another woman. So it just,
that's actually not that. I've heard that before.
It's interesting to me.
So I've had, when I was a hiring manager, I worked in Austin. We talked about this before you started recording, but if you're straight, hey, no problem. You find a job online, you want to work there, go apply. They'll treat you same as everyone else. But if you're gay, they may not, right? And so it's getting better, but there's a little bit of hesitancy in the gay community to go work at a company until they know if it's gay friendly or not.
Sure. Yeah.
And so when I was a hiring manager, once I started showing acceptance to people when they revealed that they were gay, first off, we had other employees. There was one girl, I felt so stupid. We knew that she was in a relationship because somebody had sent her flowers, and we were doing like this open house thing. And she was just this beautiful girl. There was nothing, and I don't mean any offense by this, but
I know exactly what you mean.
There was nothing about her that would make you think maybe she was gay, right? And someone had sent her flowers, and we were doing like an open house thing, and it was like, we want to meet your spouses, bring your family in. And we were giving her shit, and we were like, hey, you can bring your boyfriend, it's okay, like, well, only pick on him a little bit. And I just remember I kept going back. I kept just pushing that button. And then one of the girls revealed that she was gay, brought her partner, and everybody was super accepting. And then all the gay people came out publicly, and she was one of them. And I went up to her and I was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I don't know how many things I said to you about your boyfriend and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't care. But in that process, I got close with 2 of the gay women that I had hired. And one of them I traveled with to conferences. And we would just, be sitting on the plane talking or whatever. And both of the girls that I had gotten close with told me that they could be with a man if they found the right man. And both of them begged me not to tell anyone they had said it.
Interesting. Because it would cause
because they were all friends.
Yeah.
And they all hung out together. And that's where I learned the term lipstick lesbian, because one of the girls was like, I even found her to be attractive.
Right.
She is beautiful. And my boss said, like, I think she has a crush on you. And I'm like, she's gay. Like, she's gay. I've seen pictures of her partner.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And, but she told me in private, she said, like, I could be with a man if I found the right one. It's just when I found someone I want to be with, it happened to be a woman. But I just found it so interesting that there's so much pressure inside the gay community to conform. And if you don't, then you risk being ostracized, I guess.
Well, I think I would agree with you. I think that when I was in my 20s in college and shortly thereafter, there was a lot of that went on. I think it has gotten better. I'm not a huge fan of millennials, but I think they have helped to kind of broaden the spectrum socially, and make it a little bit less restrictive and a little bit less penalizing when you want to, I don't want to say hop around, but it's less about the sex and more about really just who do you love?
Right.
And you kind of just hit on that a minute ago. Like, this just happens to be who I love. And, it's, you mentioned, lipstick lesbians and passing and all that kind of stuff. And, back in the day, you either went one of 2 ways. You either went that quote unquote lipstick lesbian way so that you could pass because you didn't want to be out. You didn't want to be made and identified as being gay. Or, this is just my opinion, you went the opposite route so that you never had to actually have the conversation.
Right. Anyone that glanced at you thought,
and then that was it. You didn't have to talk. You didn't have to have that conversation. My niece, who's a veteran of the military, and I couldn't be more proud of her. She's like my little mini me, but she is the opposite of me. She's married to a woman. I think she's 26 years old now. But you look at her, you know immediately she's gay.
Right.
And that's her whole life.
I didn't know you were gay.
I'm going to say this, and I hope it doesn't sound shitty. I hope not.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I hope not, because I'm a woman.
Right.
I like everything about women.
Right.
So I've always struggled with women who are extremely masculine because I don't get it. That's to me a gender issue, a gender identity issue, and much less about being gay. I think there's a gender issue and I think there's a sexuality issue. I have a lot of friends who, at appearance, look like men that are women. I love them, but I don't get it.
Right.
I would never be attracted to that. I am blessed, and I feel like I've hit the lotto in life. In every relationship I've been with, I'm with women who are way out of my league, including now.
Okay, first off, you're very beautiful, so don't say that about yourself.
Appreciate that.
But I have seen a picture of your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And she is beautiful.
She is. And she is. And I laugh, and my guy friends give me a ton of shit, and they always have.
Right.
She struggled because, she was previously to me, she was dating a surgeon, and, that whole situation, a guy, and, at another hospital, she works at a hospital. And so when we broke up and she started getting flowers or things or posting about us, people just thought we were friends. And so women, unlike guys, say, well, my girlfriend, I'm going out with my girlfriend.
Right. Yeah.
She tried desperately to make people understand that I was her girlfriend.
Right.
But
girlfriend.
Yeah,
right.
No one understood. So, I mean, that never happens with guys. You guys don't call each other your boyfriends.
No,
right?
No,
so,
not in our culture.
No.
Yeah.
So she struggled with that. But, and so we, not only my older relationships, but me and my ex-wife, me and her, we've struggled with that from a society perspective, because sometimes people don't get that we're together.
Right.
Because we don't.
Dudes hit on her right in front of you, kind of a thing? Or
absolutely. Yes. I mean,
to be honest, even if they knew you were together, it'd probably make it worse.
It is worse now. So she's experiencing that. I'm used to it, but she's experiencing it. She would get hit on by doctors and everything else at the hospital. But now that they know she's with a woman, that's even hotter.
Right.
Right. So now they're even more interested. When I was married to my ex, we went on a double date with one of her colleagues and his girlfriend. And I thought it was odd from the minute it happened when we got the invite. Like, have you ever had dinner with this guy before? This is right after we got engaged. She's like, no, he just out of the blue asked if we wanted to go to dinner. And so we went to dinner, and I knew immediately, because I have got that spidey sense, absolutely, that this was going to be weird. And so it wasn't 30 minutes into the dinner where it was clear that this dinner was about, would y'all be interested in, right? And it was almost like
sexual melee.
Yeah, but it was almost like our relationship wasn't legitimate, so it's cool to disrespect it by saying, can we insert ourselves into this situation?
Right.
So it was super offensive. I think if that would have been me and you, that guy would never have done that, right? But he felt like he had some kind of license because we weren't a quote unquote real couple, right?
Maybe.
So it was interesting.
I wouldn't look at it, and I wouldn't look at it like this.
Yeah.
So let's pretend for a moment.
Okay. Me, her, you, and your wife go to dinner. Would that ever come up?
I mean, we would. Okay. But
you're on the spot now.
The point that I'm trying to make is, let's suppose that he knows his girlfriend is on spectrum.
Right. She was.
And she's curious. But she didn't while out in college. Never had the opportunity. And don't let me forget, I want to come back to your perspective, why you think men are turned on by two women together, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyways,
Same reason I am.
right. So I do want to come back to that. But so he's turned on by the concept.
Right.
She's curious,
Right.
but doesn't know where to go,
Right.
what to do.
Right.
Like, where do I start? Right. Like, are they going to hire a hooker?
Right.
Right. For her to figure out, is this something that she wants to do?
Right. But this
And so-
newly engaged couple is the segue. That's where I thought was, oh, that's tacky.
No, I think, well, and you know, as a straight male,
Yeah.
you might think like, oh, well, if they're gay, then they understand her plight. Like she
But they're in a committed
she's
relationship.
kind of in a closet, you know, and she doesn't know
Right.
whether or not this is something she wants to do. Is there like, are there samples? Are there lesbians? Like,
I want sample?
I want some gay samples to see whether or not I like the way that this is going. Right. So, I'm not sure that he was thinking a whole lot about the committedness of your relationship, which maybe that's the area of disrespect as much as it is that, you know, here's his partner. She's curious. He's interested, you know, and he's like, well, shit, I don't know any other venue. Plus, as you've said yourself, you and your partner are the varietal of gay that straight men like.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
And so in that regard, you might be an extra target compared to someone else. I don't know.
No, I think that's fair. Yeah, it's fair.
And so don't get too mad. Although, I mean, I get the point. Like, you should be looking at we just got engaged or
Right.
whatever. Like, you should be looking at our, you know, relationship as important. But don't think that same thing doesn't happen to straight couples, because there's like a bunch of swingers. And
Oh, I'm aware. Yeah.
apparently, like, I've not personally been exposed to it.
Yeah.
But a buddy and I that I work out with, he was like, yeah, there's this couple that we, you know, they live in our neighborhood and we go out and get drinks with them from time to time. And last time we went out, they revealed that we were swingers and asked if we wanted to swap. And I was like,
That's
are you kidding me?
Super common.
Yeah. And
I'm probably exposed to it more than you are, because when you're gay, there's an assumption, two things, that you've been with men already. So that is not such a far jump, but that you're also a little bit more free sexually.
Right.
So
which doesn't necessarily have to be true.
Doesn't necessarily.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
It probably is.
Yeah,
but
I'm gonna take a drink.
Yeah.
But yes. So I think that there's just a lot of assumptions that happen.
So if you're listening out there and you have a female gay friend and your wife is bi-curious, don't disrespect the sanctity of their relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight women.
Although, I mean, you might go to them for advice, but probably don't ask them to, like, wife swap, basically. So let's get back to, you know, all growing up.
Yeah.
Like, guys, two girls together, super hot. Why?
It is super hot.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that is? There's no place for them to, like, there's actually a stand-up comedian that made a joke about, like, my girl said she wanted to be with another girl. And, like, basically I just ended up paying for the hotel room. Like, you know, he was just sitting there. I was just sitting, like, there was no place for me to insert they were totally into each other.
Yeah.
Neither one of them wanted me to like be involved.
It's difficult. I mean, you're asking me. So for me,
right.
You know, there's an emotional thing between two women that exists that for me, I can't imagine existing between me and a man.
Okay.
And I think that if you were to ask, let me say it this way. So I've been with married women.
This is Randy Sullivan with RSHST Capital, LLC, and the host of Bourbon Real Talk. Producing a podcast is time-consuming and expensive, and Bourbon Real Talk wants to maintain its integrity by not promoting products or services that it doesn't believe in. For this reason, I have opted to have my funding company sponsor this program. RSHST Capital is the first of its kind funding company that provides pay at close funding to home sellers out of their equity. If you have a home to sell, need money for renovations or repairs to maximize your profit, money to stop pending foreclosure or to keep your mortgage current, or cash for really anything, then look into RSHST Capital. This program is simple. We verify that you have equity, approve you for a funding amount. You have access to that cash at practically a moment's notice for only a nominal fee. This program is raising sellers cash after closing by tens of thousands of dollars, stopping foreclosures and changing people's financial future. You pick your real estate agent, your contractor, and have access to actual cash or contracting expenses with zero upfront cost. This is a nationwide program, so if you have any curiosity about how it works, please look us up at rshstcapital.com, Facebook, or just give us a call at 214-385-9101. Okay.
While women were married.
Okay.
I'm saying that not with any kind of pride. I'm just saying that with the fact that that's happened to me in my younger life. And not my so much younger life. And it was, I think, for them seeking something they just could not find with their boyfriend or their husband or whatever the case may be on an emotional level. I think there was some of it that was on a sexual level, of course. They just weren't getting. Their needs either weren't being fed emotionally or sexually that are being filled with a woman that they just could not get from a man.
Right.
I can't speak to that because I've never been with a guy, but I can imagine that there's probably something very different about being with a woman than being with a guy. And so it's funny because I think there are, when you talk about a spectrum, and you talk about, we make these jokes about, that woman's 3 cosmos away from being gay.
Okay.
There's truth to that.
Right.
There's far more than for men.
Okay.
And a lot of it is because, for one, it's socially acceptable to be a gay woman, much more than it is socially acceptable to be a gay man.
Okay.
I think if you look at statistics, I think the 15 to 29-year-old male, gay male, is the highest statistic for committing suicide.
Yes.
That's staggering to me. But it's because in this society, in this country, better than some countries, but guys have it harder. It is just easier and more socially acceptable for women to be with women than it is for men to be with men.
Okay.
I
think I'd agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that women have an easier time passing. Sometimes you can't tell a soccer mom from a gay woman. Let's put it that way.
Right.
I mean, literally. I mean, they got yoga pants on and a tank top and a ponytail. Are they gay? Or are they soccer mom?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't think men have the luxury of walking that same path. So I think women tend to be more fluid anyway, and women are more emotional anyway. And so I think that when women form those emotional connections with other women completely differently than how men connect with each other, that line gets blurred much easier.
See, I think that for men that are, they fantasize about 2 women, in their fantasy, both women want them.
Yeah, they're not interested.
Right.
Also, pro tip, scissoring does not happen. That legit only happens in Cinemax.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing joke at my gym, so it doesn't happen.
Okay.
You may try that when you're like 17 and limber, but after that, it doesn't work. It doesn't happen. So, man, I'm sorry to bust your bubble or anything else that you want to bust, but it doesn't happen.
That is hilarious. So let's go back to your college years.
Yeah. Debauchery.
The debauchery, right? You're on your own. You're free.
Yeah.
You said that there were a few instances where people, meathead type guys treated you poorly. Tell us some stories about some, discrimination and oppression that you have felt just simply because you are gay.
Mainly in college. I went to a small private school in Southern California and played basketball there. And I was out from the moment I, landed on campus. Um, and I was in a public speaking class my freshman year, and I spoke about, I had a girlfriend that passed away. She got in a car accident and died. And so my speech was about that and how it impacted me, and how I kind of got through that situation. A couple days later, I lived in a women's dorm, the women's segment of the dorm, and I got back to my room one day, and I had um, I had a pink dildo nailed to my front door. 2 days after that speech.
And that would have been all right if they didn't put a hole in the dildo.
Well, and it was pink, so there was that, and that was the joke. I mean, it was pink and it was like 4 inches long. I don't know what the hell. Like, he was either cheap or I don't know where he got that thing. But I found that to be super surprising at a small liberal arts school in Southern California. Besides it being completely offensive, especially on the heels of that. I mean, it was a speech that I had to give in front of a class of 100 people. And I lost my shit during that speech.
Right.
Admittedly, I mean, it was tough to get through. It was talking about my coming out experience. It was talking about her passing away.
Because this wasn't about like I like gay sex. This was about like I lost love.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was tough, and it wasn't something I was expecting to encounter in this location, at this school, at this age, after coming out. I kind of felt I was on the downhill, right, of easy breezy, because I had already come out. The hard part was over, right? Mm-hmm. And this was just an exercise in school. So I didn't think there was going to be ramifications for me sharing that story. We found out who it was. It was one of the guys on the baseball team. And, I was given the opportunity to choose his fate. And we ended up just having a conversation in the lounge of the student center. And, he could have been suspended from the baseball team. He could have been suspended from school. He could have been given community service. And I just was like, you're kind of just a douchebag, man. Mm. Like, do you feel good about yourself right now? And we had a conversation about that. And, I tried to get him to understand, like, how would you have felt if this was your girlfriend and you were giving this speech? And I don't even know what I would have nailed to your door. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Right.
So I can't say that there was a happy ending, that we had this love friendship afterwards. I don't think I ever spoke another word to him after that. Who knows how he grew up? Who knows what he is now as a man? I hope that he learned from that experience and is a better man than he was when he was in his 20s. He could be talking shit about me as soon as he walked away from that meeting. I have no idea. But I completely let him off the hook. Just kind of was one of those situations, like, super disappointed in you.
Right.
I can't tell you if he learned a lesson, but that was my experience in college. That was professionally, I've had one person kind of be pretty abrasive with me for being out. Mm-hmm. And I work in corrections, around 90% men in the private industry. And I've had one guy who I worked with as a peer treat me pretty poorly. Mm. Call me a dyke, call me at 2:00 in the morning drunk. Yeah, he just has some issues.
Yeah, that goes beyond just
we don't work together
homophobia.
Anymore, right?
That's like
we're in the same industry, so we see each other probably 2-3 times a year, and we'll just see each other and walk the other direction. But I've been very lucky, but I honestly think, Randy, that it's because I have always just been me first.
Right.
Right? You get to know me, you like me or you don't. And then somewhere down the line, you realize that, I'm married or I have a girlfriend or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And then, oh, okay, cool. And
which was my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I prefer.
So one of the things that I love about the whiskey community, right, is that, so we did a barrel selection over here, and you're one of the top contributors to the whiskey group, Someone Say Whiskey, which if you're not in Someone Say Whiskey and you like whiskey, look us up on Facebook. You should join. We've got a lot of good things going on. Mm-hmm. Fundraiser for disabled veterans and children. We got all kinds of stuff going on. But what I found, one time I was at Union Bear, local restaurant. A lot of the whiskey nerds go there, and everyone knows Tanner Fleming. He's the GM there. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting there eating brunch with my family, and I ordered, I always ask Tanner, is there anything new that I need to try? And they've had their Russell's Reserve pick for a long time, but it had just come in. It wasn't even on the menu. So I ordered the glass, and he says, "Do you know Larry?" And I was like, "Larry Burgess?" He's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "That's him. He's sitting right next to you." And so I was like, "Oh man, we've never met face to face." So we start talking, and next thing you know, we're like swapping glasses and drinking out of each other's glasses.
Right.
Well, we did a barrel selection here, and there were, I don't know, 9, 10 people here, maybe 11, I can't remember. And there were 6 different whiskeys that we were trying, and I didn't have 6 glasses for each person. And so I said, we're just going to have to share the glasses. And so you've got, 9, 10, 11 people in the room. They don't know each other. Some people know each other, and we're drinking after each other.
Right.
That is the connective power of bourbon, right? No one cares that you're gay. Mm-hmm. No one cares that you're black. Mm-hmm. No one, we're just here drinking whiskey together, right?
Well, when we, I think probably everyone sold something on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, right? Mm-hmm. So you post something for sale and you meet at the fire department, or you meet at the police station, or you meet at the Walmart parking lot. I've bought, 15 bottles from someone says, the whiskey site, and complete stranger dudes come over to I'm like, yeah, come over, drop off the bottle.
Right.
I mean, I had, Chris and Billy come over and drop off a bottle, and it's the two of them who I met Chris before, but I had never met Billy, and they're standing in my kitchen, him, Billy, Heather, me, and we're, opening up a bottle and pouring some samples and drinking. I've never even met one of these guys, and I have them in my house.
Right.
Now, I would never do that if I was selling a motorcycle or a gun or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But you want to bring whiskey to my house?
Come on over.
Open the door. We're sitting there, we're pouring each other drinks and having samples. So it's funny because it's, for some reason, maybe it's naive, but there's a level of trust and comfort with the people that I've met in this group that, I came over to this house and we sat around a table. I didn't know anybody. I had not met anybody but Rodney. I've been to Rodney's house a handful of times. Went to Justin Case's house a couple days ago, dropped off a bottle, but it's just one of those things. I meet these guys in the parking lot at 7-Eleven. We're exchanging bottles. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And for me specifically, it's even odder that I feel that comfortable because I don't have a lot of contact with men outside of a professional environment, right? All my contact is primarily with women. And I certainly don't typically invite men to my home with my girlfriend at the house, because sometimes I can't get them to leave.
Right.
And I know it's not me. So it's that. And I let a lot of guys say, hey, do you want me to come to your house and drop it off? I'm like, I don't know. I want you to be here.
Yeah.
So, but it's been super cool. But you're right. Complete strangers were passing a glass and all drinking out of the same glass. So it's
I feel like whiskey's powerful.
It totally is.
Right? Like racial boundaries,
absolutely.
Like, other social prejudices. None of that stuff matters when you're just passing the glass.
If you don't do this, then I think you're weird. But when I start interacting with somebody in our group, I'll go to I may not be friends with them on Facebook, but I'll go to see what they're all about. There's a lot of folks that outside of this, I would never probably interact with.
Right.
I'm seeing like Confederate flags, stuff on their stuff. We won't get into politics, but I'm seeing stuff politically that I'm like, oh wow, like we don't align at all. But man, he's got this bottle.
Right.
And we're joking about whiskey. And so we can connect on some level. If we can connect on this level and I can get to know you from this, maybe you're going to be a little less homophobic, or you're going to be a little less racist, or I'm going to be a little less offended by your political choices or your ideologies or your religion or your worldview on this. And so I think you're right. And I think that's obviously the point of your podcast, but it is powerful. And I think it's important.
Compassion. No. Empathy. Empathy and compassion are the magical ingredient to connection.
Sure.
Right? So you might not be able to have a connection with somebody who thinks completely different from you and so on and so forth. But if you form a little empathy and compassion because you know their story, things become possible that were previously not possible. Right? So to get back to the previous subject at hand, one of the things that straight people do not know is that, and you brought it up, you said there's division in the female gay community as a whole,
Right.
in some ways. There's a little bit of pressure to be a certain way, and if you're not, then you may be rejected by your community. But I hang out with and I mean no offense, but my wife collects gay men like Pokemon. Like like I can't leave her alone in a store, because if there's a gay dude, she's going to try to. She's like, "Can I keep him?" And I'm like, "He has a home. He has a mom.
Is he chipped?
Right? Like he's fine. He
Yeah.
didn't, But she's got so much compassion for anyone that she feels like has not been accepted or has been rejected, that she just wants to mother everyone, right? And I'm like, okay, well they already have a house. They no, we're not taking him home. It's he's fine. But because of that, I hang out with a lot of gay men and gay couples, male gay couples, and I have observed that if they are in control of the festivities, they tend to take us to gay bars.
Sure.
Which is fine. Although my wife also dresses me like a gay Ken doll. So
You have the hair, though.
I have
You're
the hair,
good.
yeah. And so I'm like, the patrons are very confused, right? When I come in.
With your wife.
Right. Well, they're like, oh, she must have collected him too. And then I get hit on, which is okay. And like sometimes she gets mad, sometimes she doesn't. But I've also noticed that there'll be lesbians in the bar, usually of the more masculine varietal,
right?
And they don't mix, like
right.
they're not talking to each other.
No.
And so I asked my gay friend the other day, and he's like super like polite and respectful and nice. I said, hey, why do you think there's beef between the lesbian and the gay community? And he goes, lesbian energy is just different. And that was his only, like, he didn't like explain
it's
how
fair.
It was different.
Yeah,
I was
it's
just
fair.
like, and so I was like, do you mean like, and he's like, I don't know. It's like, sometimes they're angry.
There's a lot of cargo shorts involved in that dynamic.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
I'd love your analysis on the subject.
Well, I mean, so you're asking the wrong person, because we joked about this a little bit before we on the air, but there's always been a joke about me being slightly homophobic.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm homophobic, clearly, because I only sleep with women. But I don't partake in gay bars. I don't do the gay bar scene. I don't go to gay pride. I've never owned a rainbow flag item of any sort, type, or it's just not my thing. Like, I'm not gonna freaking fly that flag.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, well, so you mentioned Union Bear.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it another way. There is nowhere that I go in this state, this county, this city, this anything, where I don't hold hands with who I'm with.
Okay.
Now, I won't be ridiculous, and especially around young children. Like, I make a point of being respectful.
Right.
If I were a straight woman, I wouldn't be making out with my husband in front of small children either. But I guess my point is, I hold hands with who I'm with everywhere I go.
Mm-hmm.
We go to Union Bear quite a bit, and we sit at the bar, and we sit microseconds apart, and it's clear that we're together. I don't hide that whatsoever. And so I guess my point is, I don't feel like I need to go to a gay bar to be who I am.
Right.
I'm going to be who I am no matter where I am, because I actually think it's a benefit to everyone around me. I think the more you see it, the more you see it, and the more this straight guy sees it, the more this straight woman sees it, the more this 17-year-old young gay man sees this, they start to feel a little less threatened by
right.
it. And I also will say this. I think that, we talk about the masculine women and the, whatever you want to call them, I guess what I am, right? I think as you
don't wear makeup, so I can't
I do wear eye makeup. I don't, and that's the only thing I wear.
I can't tell you're wearing makeup.
Yeah, I wear
which is, I think that's the goal for women.
It is the goal.
Yeah. Okay.
I won today.
Yeah, you won.
I have long nails. You know, it takes me longer to get ready than my girlfriend. So I mean, whatever. The point is, I think that when you see that more than you see, I'm going to sound like a complete asshole right now, but when you see the Birkenstocks and the cargo shorts and the visor and the like that look, I think it becomes less threatening, more relatable, and it normalizes it.
Right.
And so maybe subconsciously that's the reason I've always lived the way I've lived and appeared the way I appeared, because not because I want to assimilate, but because I want this, because this is who I am. Right. This is what I'm comfortable as. I would never be comfortable dressed like a guy. But I think it does everyone a benefit to see me and my attractive girlfriend who looks like the woman who goes to the PTA.
Right.
Holding hands at the Frisco rail yard.
Right.
Because it just becomes more, okay, that's cool. Right. So I guess back to your point about the infighting, there's infighting between the men and the women in the gay community. There's infighting between the, what I would call the androgynous women or the masculine women and the non. There's infighting between the guys that are super effeminate and the guys that may look like you. Right. And it's silly. There shouldn't be that infighting. But I think everyone's kind of jockeying for my way is the way, right? And I think we need to get away from that and just say, I'm just who I am. You're going to be who you are. I just have a hard time. I have a hard time with it. We talked about the gay pride event. That was either last weekend or the weekend before that, I think, at Fair Park. Okay, you could not catch me dead at that event. I think it's extremely sexualized.
I'm more likely to go than you are.
You absolutely are. I haven't been to a gay pride event since Long Beach, California, when I was in college. And even then, I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are these guys in Speedos? Like, what does this have to do with sex?
And my stupid ass, I'm like, look how much fun they're having.
They are. They are. So I say all that, and I get, and my friends say, I would never go to a drag show. Like, no, I'm not doing it. It's just not my thing. But because in reality, Randy, I am the most traditional person you would ever meet.
Right.
Like, I'm not left liberal. When I got married, I flew to Georgia and asked permission before we made that decision. I'm super traditional, aside from the fact that I sleep with women. Everything else about me is, I work in corrections in a very, very conservative setting. I work amongst mainly men, conservative men, and I fit in very well because we have a lot in common, aside from our politics. But, it goes back to, I think, just accepting the people who they are first. And I think if you're just who you are authentically, you actually don't need to put on a front. And I think people put on these fronts on purpose instead of just being who they are. And I've never done that. And maybe because I've never done that, never tried to be with men, never tried to act like I was interested in men, just was always me. It's been easier for me. And then by default, I become less accepting of people who are trying to overcompensate. Because I don't get it. Like, I'm like, God, why are you trying to overcompensate for that? Just be you. Because I feel like they're overcompensating. Maybe they aren't, but I end up feeling like they are. And that's why I think, like, I've got to rock out with my cock out on a float going down Fair Park. Like, dude, why are you doing that? Do you do that on Tuesday?
Right.
Like, is that what gay means? Because that's not what gay means to me.
When I see it, as a straight person, when I see it, I think, what has being this way cost this person?
Yeah.
It's probably a lot.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Often.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Often, they've had terrible life experiences. They've been treated terribly. They've been rejected by people that are supposed to love them.
Yep.
And so when I've tried to understand, like, the infighting, the conclusion that I kind of came to, which I'm not even qualified to have an opinion, but I do anyway, is that when you find a community that you identify with that has also had those sacrifices and those pain points, if someone tries to escape it, then you're mad about it.
Sure.
And if someone tries to say, no, the way you're doing it is wrong, you're like, you don't know how much this costs me.
Right.
Right. And so until you know how much it costs me, oh, it's easy for you. Yeah, I'm effeminate gay, but look at you. You know, you can fit in easily. Right. And so screw you. You haven't had to deal with the pain that I've had to deal with.
Right.
Right. And so I kind of understand how that can happen. But I also think that, you know, and I'm a jackass. Like, my podcast doesn't make any difference. But you have, like, I hope that it does.
Sure.
Right. I hope that, you know, more, and I don't even know if there's an offensive thing, but I hope that more masculine lesbians and less and more, you know, feminine lesbians can realize, like, no, we're fighting for the same
Absolutely.
thing.
No,
I hope that,
for sure,
you know, straight people that are homophobic, I hope I reduce homophobia. I hope I reduce racism. I hope that I reduce, you know, social stigma between, you know, poor people and people who grew up affluent. And
right.
I want everyone to understand each other better and have that connection. You know, and sometimes I think about, like, what I'm trying to do, and it's like, who do you think you are? It's but then it's like, well, you have to do what you can do. And if you don't, then you're not being true to yourself.
You know, we were not too far away from, you know, in our parents' generation, right? Mm-hmm. There were still a level of social inequality that I hope we never see again, but we are still seeing that, not only from a racial perspective, but just from a gay perspective. When I got married, I couldn't get married in the state of Texas.
Right.
I had to fly to Maryland to get married. My entire wedding had to take place in another state, not the state where I live, not the state where I, you know, work. Not
you
the
didn't have family there.
Didn't have anyone there.
Yeah.
We picked Maryland. I mean, it should have been California, but we picked Maryland, and we had our wedding in Maryland. When my ex-wife changed her name to mine before we got married, she had to go to court and recite a speech to the judge to ask permission to change her name and give the reason why. That doesn't happen when you married your wife.
No.
Right?
I just walked in with a piece of paper.
That's
and they're
exactly
like, boom,
right.
Bada bing, bada boom.
She had to explain why she wanted to change her name to mine. So there's a lot of things that still today exist. There's still talk about gay conversion therapy. There's still talk about whether or not I could legally adopt a child. There's still talk about whether, if, you know, me and whoever I am with have children and I don't give birth, is that my child too? There's a lot of insanity about still, you know, legally, from a legal perspective, about being gay and what rights we do and don't have.
Right.
Renting, jobs, all kinds of things, healthcare. You know,
there's tons of healthcare issues.
Absolutely. I mean, we had to, when I was still married, we had to do a trust. We had to declare each other our medical emergency. You know, if she were in the hospital, thank God her family was supportive, but if they weren't and she would have been in the hospital and they want to say, no, you can't come here, I wouldn't have any rights.
Right.
That's insane.
Right.
And it's 2019 and we're still talking about these things. We're still talking about gay conversion therapy.
Right.
Like it's the 60s.
I'm going to say something to all of you out there, and you conservatives are not going to like it. But what I will say is, if I did wake up in that alternate universe and there were straight conversion therapy, there is no amount of talking to a counselor that could make me not straight. And I think that if you had some gay friends, you might discover that there's no amount talking to a counselor that can make them want to be with somebody of the opposite sex, right? And and that's not 100% true, because every time I have that
Sure.
conversation with somebody, they go, well, I saw a story about so-and-so and such and such. Okay, well, they were in the middle of the spectrum.
Absolutely, they were.
That's fine. You know, some people, like, it's like a wild card, right? It just depends on who they're making connection with.
Absolutely.
Some people, it's not like a wild card.
Right.
Like, I have a gay friend that tried to have sex with a girl when he was in high school so that he could fit in, and he threw up. He threw up, which is like, you and I are like, what the fuck? So I think that's probably a good place to kind of wrap it up. You know, the point that I want all of you guys to receive is that be open to meeting people and hearing their stories, and try to have compassion, try to form some empathy before you try to evaluate their lifestyle or their choices or their political views or what it means to be the race that they are or anything else. Because when you get to know individuals, that matters. What you think about people as a whole, it doesn't matter at all. So if people, you don't have like anything that you're promoting, so I like to give the guests the opportunity to say if you need to get in contact with me, they probably need to join Someone Say Whiskey if they.
Someone Say Whiskey for sure.
Yeah. So if you're interested in hearing more from Melissa, you can search Facebook for Someone Say Whiskey and send a invite request, and one of the admins will review it and get you approved. And Melissa's quite active in there. If you want more information about Bourbon Real Talk, you can do that at bourbonrealtalk.com. You can search Bourbon Real Talk on Facebook, Instagram, and you can search for podcast episodes and subscribe on YouTube and any podcast software that is out there. And we would really love your support. If you think that you have a great idea for a show or you'd like to be a show guest, you can go to our website at bourbonrealtalk.com. There's a form down at the bottom, and you can fill that out, and that comes directly to me. So if you guys have any questions or comments, throw them down below. As always, no hate, only love, and we will see you next time on Bourbon Real Talk.